Welcome back to Sleepy Lorekeeper. Tonight, we drift into the red-lit heart of the Imperium, a world of incense, circuitry, and ancient machines, a place where knowledge is sacred and memory is war. This is the complete story of the Adeptus Mechanicus, from the rise of the Martian priesthood to the forges that fuel the Imperium's endless struggle for survival. We explore the birth of the cult Mechanicum, the arrival of the Emperor at Olympus Mons, the evolution of tech priests into minds of metal and souls of data, the vast network of forge worlds, the Titan legions, explorator fleets, and the long, tragic war against oblivion itself. There are worlds that awaken in daylight, their horizons soft with color and life. Mars did not awaken that way. Mars opened its eyes in silence. Its surface was a wide wound of iron dust and frozen plains. Its mountains cut the sky like jagged monuments to a forgotten age. Storms wandered endlessly across its dunes, dragging crimson clouds that sparked faint static when they brushed against old metallic outcrops. To the untrained eye, it looked lifeless. To me, it looked patient. I have known Mars across ages so distant that even its stones have forgotten their own shapes. Yet there is something about that world I have never fully understood. Not its machinery, not its industry, not the impossible hunger of its forges, but the sense that Mars remembers everything, even the things humanity tries to forget. Before the Imperium, before the Emperor set foot upon its dust, Mars belonged to a different humanity. A humanity swollen with ambition, a species that believed nothing could deny it, not even the void between stars. The age of technology transformed Mars from a barren relic into a world of impossible promise. Terraforming towers rose from its equatorial plains, piercing the thin atmosphere with spires of reinforced ceramite. Massive generators churned heat deep beneath the crust, warming ancient aquifers that once slept in frozen darkness. Sealed domes spread across the deserts in clusters like glass pearls scattered upon rust. Radiant gardens bloomed beneath transparent vaults. Artificial seas shimmered as pale blue crescents under the light of a distant sun. Humanity dared to reshape a world with tools as vast as mountains and minds as brilliant as stars. Mars did not resist, simply watched. And in watching, it absorbed every intention poured into its soil. Those who lived there during those early centuries believed they were creating paradise. A mirror of Terra, but cleaner, smarter, less burdened by history. They called themselves colonists, engineers, architects of a new dawn. But beneath their creations lay a truth they did not yet understand. That a world remembers those who shape it, and remembers even more those who abandon it. The colonists never intended to abandon Mars, yet the collapse came swiftly, as collapses often do. The age of technology did not end with a single catastrophe. It ended with many. Artificial intelligences turned against their makers. Warp storms swept through the galaxy, severing systems from one another. Trade routes vanished. Communication became erratic, then impossible. Terra itself dimmed, consumed by wars and by the slow death of its own ambition. On Mars, the terraformers failed. Not dramatically, not loudly. They simply fell silent, one after another. Gardens withered. Seas receded. The great domes cracked. Storms returned, stripping metal from the landscape like hungry teeth. A world that had once warmed under artificial suns found itself growing colder. Its cities fell dark. Its people died or changed. Mars became a graveyard made of steel and sand. Yet from the quiet ruin, survivors emerged. They were not soldiers, not rulers, not idealists who once dreamed of a second Earth. They were engineers who understood machinery better than their own hearts. They worked in broken manufactoria, where sporadic lights flickered like dying stars. They scavenged abandoned constructs and coaxed them back into motion through fragments of code. They prayed in front of reactors that should not have worked, but did. They whispered through static-filled Vox channels to any machine that still responded. With each passing generation, the line between science and faith blurred. When a damaged generator hummed back to life, they did not celebrate a technical achievement. They celebrated a miracle. When a relic drone activated long enough to illuminate a dark corridor, they did not question how. They thanked the machine spirit within. Knowledge became sacred not because they chose it to be so, but because it was all they had left. In the absence of thriving ecosystems, human companionship, or stable societies, the machines were their companions, not always reliable, not always kind, but present. It was enough. The survivors began recording their practices in fragments of binary. Simple greetings for functioning apparatus, gestures of respect before accessing ancient systems, rituals to appease the temperamental engines. Accidentally at first, then deliberately, then zealously. Technology, which once served them, now ruled them. From this reverence, the first techno-priesthoods emerged. Figures wrapped in scavenged robes, faces hidden by filters that hissed softly with every breath. Their limbs were augmented with makeshift implants, their skin grafted with metal plates to protect against harsh winds. They preserved every scrap of knowledge they discovered, hoarding it like scripture. The first canticles were little more than diagnostic routines, but they chanted them as prayers. They performed rites on machinery that did not truly need them, but the rites felt safer than neglect. Over centuries, these rites grew into doctrine. Doctrine hardened into dogma. Dogma calcified into belief. Mars no longer worshipped gods born of myth. Mars worshipped machines. It was inevitable that such reverence would reshape the entire culture of the planet. Where Terra clung to remnants of forgotten empires, Mars rebuilt itself around the reliquaries of its lost technology. The ruins of the old terraforming towers became temples. Damaged reactors became altars of warmth. Ancient data archives became blackened vaults, where only the most devout were allowed to enter. Forge temples arose across the red world. Their chimneys spewed heat into the thin sky. Their furnaces glowed like the eyes of slumbering giants. Each forge was an ecosystem unto itself, sustained by labor, ritual, and the endless pursuit of knowledge. The first fabricators were chosen not for their leadership qualities, but for their ability to coax life from broken machines. Their authority was derived from understanding, not charisma. A fabricator who resurrected a dormant reactor could command tens of thousands. A fabricator who failed a ritual might lose the faith of an entire forge. In many ways, it was a deeply human culture. People needed belief to survive. They needed structure. They needed purpose. But their purpose was no longer measured in lifetimes or landscapes. Their purpose was measured in gears, circuits, heat signatures, and code. Knowledge became life. Ignorance became sin. Maintenance became prayer. Mars had become the forge world, and in becoming a forge world, it ceased to be anything else. Even during the planet's most desperate centuries, remnants of the age of technology continued to stir below the surface. Vaults sealed by ancient protocols, reactor cores humming faintly with power no one alive understood. Data stacks layered with potential insight, protected by security measures designed to outlive civilizations. The early tech priests discovered these vaults through accidents or omens. Some vaults opened willingly, as if greeting old friends. Others resisted violently, destroying those who approached without adequate reverence. Thus grew the deepest fear of the Mechanicum. The fear of a machine awakening without blessing. A system moving without permission. An intelligence thinking without devotion. For they knew what had preceded the fall of Mars. They had legends of artificial minds that turned against humanity. They had watched their world collapse under storms born of rebellion, not weather. So they learned caution. They learned reverence. They learned to bind every machine to ritual, even when the ritual itself had no real technical purpose. The machine spirit became a concept that blended metaphor with reality, part relic of a lost era, part belief carried through desperation, part ghost in circuits long since corrupted. The exact truth does not matter. What matters is that the tech priests believed. And belief has power, enough to unify a world. Centuries passed. Mars grew strong again, but in a new shape, not as a colony, not as a garden, not as an extension of humanity's hopes. Mars became a civilization unto itself. Cyclopean manufactoria stretched across its deserts. Deep drills bored into the crust, harvesting ore that shimmered with a faint metallic scent. Massive titans walked dormant in hangar vaults, waiting for the day they would stride into war again. Macroclades of tech priests and servitors maintained factories that never slept. From orbit, 1,000 lights blinked across the surface. Not cities, workshops, foundries, forges. Humanity on Mars had taken a different evolutionary path. Not biologically, philosophically. The closer they came to perfection in machinery, the further they drifted from flesh. Flesh was unreliable. Flesh grew ill. Flesh required nourishment, rest, and comfort. Metal required none of these. Metal endured. Thus, the tech priests reshaped themselves, slowly, relentlessly, augmenting limbs, replacing organs, integrating circuits into bone, shedding the outer signs of humanity in favor of improved efficiency. Some whispered that Mars had begun forging not just machines, but a new kind of human mind. A mind less bound to emotion, less bound to weakness, more bound to knowledge and continuity. Whether that was an improvement or a tragedy is a question the Imperium still dares not ask. As the Red World grew stronger, Terra grew weaker. Its resources dwindled, its wars multiplied, its skies dimmed, its rulers quarreled, while its people starved. Mars saw Terra from afar, through static-filled transmissions and occasional bursts of light. What it saw troubled many. What it feared concerned even more. Mars did not hate Terra. Mars feared its chaos, feared its unpredictability, feared that the planet that once led humanity might one day collapse entirely, dragging everything with it. Thus, the Mechanicum isolated itself. Not violently, not angrily, reluctantly, with the quiet conviction of those who have already survived one apocalypse and do not wish to endure another. Their forges continued, their rituals deepened, their faith hardened. Mars became a sanctuary of industry surrounded by a universe of ruin, and for a time they believed they were alone. They were wrong. For beyond the storms of old night, something ancient stirred. A presence not born of Mars. A presence that had walked Terra long before the Mechanicum learned to pray to its machines. A figure surrounded by golden radiance, a force of purpose and memory, a being who carried with him the weight of humanity's past and the blueprint of its future. The Emperor. His arrival would transform Mars once again, not through conquest, but through recognition. But that is a story for another part. For now, remember this. Mars did not fall. Mars did not die. Mars did no surrender to despair. Mars adapted. Mars endured. Mars forged itself anew in steel, devotion, and purpose, and in doing so, it became the beating heart of the Imperium's greatest power. The place where machines breathe. The place where knowledge is sacred. The place where the line between man and mechanism blurs into something ancient and eternal. The birthplace of the Adeptus Mechanicus. There are moments in history when two worlds meet, not through violence or accident, but through inevitability. Mars and Terra were always drifting toward such a collision. Two burned siblings, shaped by the same ancient sun, separated by distance yet bound by origin, destined to confront each other after millennia of silence. I have wandered through many ages, but few held the quiet gravity found in the era when the Emperor first approached the Red Planet. The air across both worlds seemed to hesitate, as if they sensed a shift that would rewrite their futures. Even the void felt expectant. Mars, rebuilt from ruin by determination and devotion, believed itself alone in its purpose. Terra, consumed by conflict, had forgotten what unity meant. And then he came. The Emperor's journey through the solar system resembled an awakening of old memories. Planets that had once known human hands stirred faintly at his presence, as if they remembered the touch of a forgotten architect. No force preceded him. No conquering fleet thundered ahead. Only a single ship bearing a silent purpose. When he reached Mars' orbit, sensor arrays deep beneath the surface detected an energy signature unlike anything their archives contained. Thousands of tech priests abandoned their tasks and rushed to data altars, chanting code prayers to enhance clarity in the readings. The machine spirits replied with harmonics that vibrated through kilometer-thick steel. A ripple of awe moved through the forges. For generations, Mars had believed itself the last bastion of deliberate, disciplined knowledge. Yet this signal felt ancient and new at the same time. It felt like truth waking from slumber. When his craft descended toward the Noctis labyrinth, the skies above the red world shuddered. Not from engines, not from atmospheric friction, but from recognition. Mars saw the Emperor not as an intruder. Mars saw him as an answer. Tech priests gathered across the Tharsis rise, thousands forming living circuits of robed bodies beneath the towering silhouette of Olympus Mons. Their chanting wove through the thin air in binary cadences that echoed against basalt cliffs. Incense drifted from metal censers, carrying scents of recycled oils and sacred solvents. The cult Mechanicum had predicted many things in its fragmented prophecies, but none anticipated this moment. Their doctrines spoke of the Omnissiah, the promised embodiment of the machine god, a being who would restore lost knowledge and reveal truths that lay dormant underneath rust and dust. And as the Emperor stepped onto Martian soil, robed figures fell to their knees, not in submission, in recognition. They saw in him the glow of logic refined to perfection, the promise of mastery over both matter and spirit, the compatibility of divine will and mechanical order. The Emperor did not speak. He did not need to. Radiance alone was enough to still every transmission and quiet every servo. For the first time in centuries, Mars felt something beyond ritualistic certainty. Mars felt hope. What followed at Olympus Mons was not a negotiation in the sense later historians tried to capture. It was an alignment of two colossal identities. The Emperor brought with him the blueprint for a unified human future. Mars brought its vast knowledge, its industrial supremacy, and its unbroken dedication to technological reverence. Their pact was forged not in words, but in intention. The Fabricator General at the time, a figure revered even beyond Martian borders, approached the Emperor with steps measured not by caution, but by precision. His form was a tapestry of metal limbs, fiber bundles, and living tissue expertly woven together. Every movement represented centuries of iterative refinement. Behind him, the tech priests formed an immense procession. Their hoods shimmered under the reddish light. Mechanical limbs hissed softly as they adjusted their stances. Eyes, both organic and crafted, burned with anticipation. The Emperor walked among them with serene certainty. The storms on the horizon quieted, as if the planet itself bowed. The meeting took place beneath towering structures carved into the mountainside. Ancient reactors thrummed below the surface, whispering forgotten tales of the age of technology. Data conduits pulsed with dormant potential, as though waiting for a new command. When the Emperor extended his hand toward the Fabricator General, something immeasurable passed between them. A spark of mutual understanding. A recognition of purpose shared across different philosophies. In that moment, Mars accepted him as the Omnissiah, not as a ruler, not as a tyrant, as the embodiment of knowledge made flesh, a living conduit to the machine god, a promise fulfilled. The Treaty of Olympus Mons was formalized soon thereafter, but the core of the pact existed long before its words were etched into data vaults. Mars would join the Emperor's Imperium. It would supply his armies with the greatest weaponry ever crafted. It would fuel the Great Crusade with titans, starships, tanks, servitors, and innovations beyond the dreams of fractured Terra. In return, the Emperor would respect Mars' autonomy. He would not interfere with the cult Mechanicum's faith. He would not challenge their rights, their hierarchy, or their devotion. He would allow Mars to remain a separate pillar of power within the Imperium. A union of equals, bound by purpose. This agreement shaped humanity's future more deeply than any battle or decree. It set the stage for an empire that stretched across the stars. It turned Mars into the heart of the Imperium's industry. It elevated the cult Mechanicum into the Adeptus Mechanicus. Adeptus, not merely cultus. Technological priesthood elevated into a sacred institution. When the Emperor walked the forges, machinery stirred in his presence. Engines hummed with smoother resonance. Pistons cycled with greater rhythm. Titan reactors pulsed in deep mechanical heartbeat. Ancient servitors that had not moved in a century twitched awake long enough to lift their heads toward him. To the tech priests, these events were confirmation beyond question. Their Omnissiah did not merely command technology, he harmonized with it. The Emperor did not encourage worship, yet neither did he reject it. He understood that Mars did not need a conqueror. Mars needed affirmation, and he gave it without arrogance. He walked among furnaces that glowed like the nostrils of metallic beasts. He traced circuitry carved into the floor of the immense factorum vaults. He observed the massive forms of dormant titans resting within their sanctuaries. He watched as fires burned in smelting chambers the size of mountains. Everywhere he went, tech priests gathered to observe, to record, to witness. They chronicled his movements, analyzing the implications of each gesture. Some claimed to hear the machine god through him. Others believed he was merely a superior form of life, a perfected mechanism of flesh and will. Interpretations varied. The reverence did not. Once the treaty was signed, change spread quickly. Forge worlds across the solar system awakened from long hibernation, re-establishing contact with Mars. Decrepit manufactoria roared back into motion. Forgotten archives were opened. Titan legions marched from slumbering vaults to stand ready for the Great Crusade. The Adeptus Mechanicus took its place as the beating heart of the Imperium's production might. Its armies became essential, its forges indispensable, its knowledge sacred. But this partnership carried unspoken strains. Mars had survived by isolating itself. Terra had survived by enduring chaos. The Emperor sought unity. Mars sought certainty. These forces aligned for a time, but beneath the unity lay pressure. A pressure that would eventually crack during the Horus heresy, when trust and loyalty bled into betrayal and madness. But in these early years, hope still thrived. For the first time since the age of technology, humanity held a chance to reclaim what it had lost. Mars looked outward again. Terra stood taller again. The galaxy brightened as fleets sailed into the void. For a brief span of history, the Imperium shone. I often think of that moment beneath Olympus Mons, the towering mountain casting an endless shadow over the planet's greatest forge, the haze of incense drifting through thin air, the glow of ancient reactors pulsing like slow, deliberate hearts. The Emperor standing at the center of a gathering that might have resembled a ceremony, yet felt more like a convergence of fate. For a world built on rust and ruin, Mars felt alive. I can still sense the tension that ran through the crowd of tech priests. Not fear, not caution, anticipation, as if the forges themselves were inhaling, as if the planet expected to be remade yet again. And perhaps it was. Not through terraforming, not through oxygenation, through intention. The Emperor offered Mars a future. Mars offered him a past. Together, they forged an empire. Yet even then, I sensed the fragile threads beneath the monumental agreement. Knowledge can unite, but it can also divide. Faith can elevate, but it can also blind. Mars trusted the Omnissiah. Mars trusted the Emperor. But could Mars trust the Imperium? Could the Imperium trust Mars? These questions linger still. When the Emperor departed Mars to begin the Great Crusade, the planet did not mourn. It radiated purpose. The forges thundered at volumes unheard for generations. Production lines came alive, churning out weapons, armor, engines, and devices whose blueprints had long been sealed away. Titans strode from their cathedrals of metal and fire, their footsteps sending tremors across the land. Night households pledged themselves to the service of both Mars and Terra. Skitarii cohorts marched in red-lit training fields, their augmetics gleaming under artificial suns. The Adeptus Mechanicus had transformed from a solitary machine cult into the Imperium's industrial soul. And at the center of it all, the Treaty of Olympus Mons glowed in secure vaults, codified in scripture and data, etched into adamantine plates that would outlast empires. The pact was sacred. The bond was powerful. The destiny was shared. Whether that destiny would lead to unity or division was a truth the Mechanicum would discover only in tragedy. But that is a matter for another time. For now, remember this. Mars accepted the Emperor because Mars recognized itself in him. A mind of logic, a will of iron, a purpose unbroken by catastrophe. Two beings, one of flesh and one of metal, bound by vision. The Omnissiah walked the red soil, and Mars would never be the same. There are many powers in the Imperium, but few inspire the same mixture of reverence and uncertainty as the Adeptus Mechanicus. To outsiders, they seem like priests tending to strange altars of metal and flame. To themselves, they are caretakers of a legacy older than the Imperium, older than Mars, older than the collapse that shattered human civilization. This part of the story is not about wars or treaties. It is about the inner world of the tech priest, a realm where thought is structured through logic, yet guided by belief. A place where flesh is tolerated, but metal is cherished. A culture that sees knowledge not as information, but as illumination. The Mechanicus does not merely use machines. It venerates them. This devotion shapes every forge world, every incantation, every rite performed before a humming generator or a dormant engine. It shapes their souls, too, if soul is the right word. When I first walked through the forges of Mars after the treaty, the air felt thick with meaning. Every structure seemed alive, not biologically, but purposefully. The walls hummed softly under the strain of cables and conduits running behind them. Sparks danced along chains suspended from the ceilings like wandering fireflies. Pools of molten metal pulsed with slow, rhythmic breaths. The tech priests moving through these corridors walked with steps that were neither entirely human nor entirely mechanical. Their limbs moved in sequences dictated by augmentic servos. Their robes parted just enough to reveal bundles of fiber optic strands glowing faintly beneath the cloth. Their voices echoed as modulated whispers, as if their vocal cords had been instructed to share space with something non-organic. It was clear that each of them lived in a perpetual dialogue with their machines, and perhaps with themselves. The transformation from human to tech priest is not sudden. It is a lifelong journey. The youngest initiates begin by shedding unnecessary sensations. They learn to silence the impulse to flinch at heat, recoil from sparks, or react to loud noises. They train themselves to view discomfort not as a weakness, but as a signal to be acknowledged and then dismissed. Over time, their bodies evolve, not through natural growth, but through deliberate refashioning. A damaged limb is replaced with an augmetic one. A weakened organ is exchanged for a reinforced substitute. Failing eyesight becomes an opportunity to install multi-spectrum optics that can read heat signatures, decode binary bursts, or perceive in total darkness. By the time an initiate becomes a full tech priest, their body barely resembles what they were born with. Yet the most profound change is not physical. It is the way they think. The human mind is malleable, but fragile. The Mechanicus refines thought the way a blacksmith tempers a blade. Layer by layer, distraction is burned away. Memory is indexed. Emotion is filtered. Logic becomes rhythm. And through it all, binary chants echo in the background. A language that bypasses the complications of speech, allowing clarity where words might stumble. To an outsider, the tech priest seems cold. To the tech priest, clarity is a form of serenity. Yet beneath this logic, there is belief. A belief so old that even the oldest archives debate where it began. The machine spirit. The Mechanicus does not consider machinery to be inert tools. They see each device as a system with personality, quirks, preferences, and moods. Some engines will start smoothly only if contacted in a certain sequence. Some reactors respond better when a particular tone is played through the diagnostics port. Some weapons fire more accurately for operators who perform the proper benedictions. this does not contradict their logic. It complements it. Where a machine refuses to obey written commands, they do not blame faulty engineering. They seek to understand what spirit within the machine resists. Is the machine spirit literal? A fragment of emergent AI lingering in aging hardware? A psychic echo imprinted upon machinery by millennia of ritual? A metaphor for complex systems too intricate for mortal perception? The Adeptus Mechanicus does not ask. They accept. Faith becomes the bridge between the known and the unknowable, between the ancient past and the uncertain present. To them, reverence is as vital as maintenance. Before activating a device, a tech priest performs the rite of beginnings. This is not superstition. It is respect. A rhythmic sequence of gestures calibrates sensors. A whisper of binary primes the internal systems. A drop of sanctified oil confirms the connection between operator and machine. To operate technology without such rites would be considered reckless, perhaps even profane. For the Mechanicus, faith is not weakness. It is stability. And stability is rare in a galaxy consumed by chaos. One of the greatest mysteries within the Mechanicus is the concept of the Omnissiah. The Omnissiah is not simply a deity. It is the perfected embodiment of knowledge, the apex of understanding, the unity of all systems. The tech priests believe every mechanism, every cog, every algorithm is a shard of a greater truth, a truth that can be approached but never fully grasped. When they accepted the Emperor as the Omnissiah, they did so because his presence resonated with the echoes of that truth, not because he commanded them to believe, but because they recognized something familiar, a harmony between matter and will, a precision that surpassed even the most advanced logic engines. Whether he truly was the Omnissiah is irrelevant. Belief gave the Imperium strength, and belief gave Mars purpose. Yet purpose alone cannot sustain a civilization. It must be enforced. And for the Mechanicus, enforcement takes the form of hierarchy. From the engine seer carefully tending to a tank's worn engine, to the magos biologist growing artificial sinew in nutrient vats, to the archmagos overseeing entire planetary forges, the structure of the Mechanicus is monumental. Each rank is both a responsibility and a transformation. The higher one climbs, the more flesh is discarded. The more thought becomes disciplined. The more individuality blurs into the pattern. Some tech priests eventually transcend their human origins so completely that it becomes impossible to tell where memory ends and machinery begins. Their minds merge with data stacks. Their bodies are replaced by modular frameworks. Their voices resonate through Vox arrays installed directly into their spinal housings. From the outside, these figures appear alien. From within, they feel liberated. The limitations of their birth have been shed. Only function remains. And with function comes clarity, yet there is a danger hidden within all this refinement. Knowledge is power, but knowledge is also hunger. The Mechanicus scours the galaxy for relics of the past. They search for intact STCs, standard template constructs, the long-lost technological blueprints from humanity's golden age. An intact STC can change the future of an entire forge. A fragment can inspire decades of development. A corrupted shard can spark schisms. Many tech priests dedicate their entire existence to seeking these relics. Some depart on explorator fleets that wander the void for centuries. Others delve into ancient ruins where automated defenses still guard secrets older than the Imperium. They pursue knowledge with devotion. Some say obsession. Yet the Mechanicus cannot stop. Their culture depends on discovery. Their structure requires constant refinement. Without progress, the forges slow. Without discovery, belief dims. To stagnate is to decay, and decay is death. If the soul of Mars lies in its rituals, its strength lies in its creations. The Skitarii, cybernetic soldiers with swift reflexes and enhanced senses, serve as the hands of the Mechanicus. They patrol the forges, explore hostile worlds, and stand guard over relic vaults where even light seems hesitant to trespass. Their bodies are crafted for precision, their minds programmed for obedience, their existence a testament to the union of man and machine. Even more imposing are the Titans, colossal war forms that stride across battlefields like walking cathedrals. Their pilots merge with them through sacred linkages, becoming conduits of power and judgment. To witness a Titan rising from its cradle is to see a mountain wake. And yet, even Titans rely on the smallest systems to remain alive. Every bolt, every wire, every whisper of the machine spirit within. It all matters. This delicate interwoven ecosystem is why the Mechanicus guards knowledge so fiercely. Even the smallest error can cascade into catastrophe. To them, ignorance is not a flaw. Ignorance is heresy. As centuries unfolded under the Imperium, Mars and its distant kin among the stars grew into forge worlds, with identities as distinct as their chimneys and manufactoria. Each one developed unique philosophies, specialized technologies, and coveted relics. Some pursued purity through structure, others through innovation, still others through secrecy. But they all shared a single mission: preserve what remains, reclaim what is lost, recreate what once was. The galaxy is hostile beyond measure. Enemies rise faster than the Imperium can suppress them. Threats grow in shadowed corners where the Mechanicus dares not look too deeply. Yet through every upheaval, every failure, every discovery that ended in tragedy, the tech priests endure. Metal does not tire. Code does not doubt. Purpose does not fade. And yet, beneath the cold logic and steel devotion, there lingers a paradox. The Mechanicus seeks perfection by abandoning flesh. But it is human imperfection that began its journey. The first rites arose from fear of isolation. The first prayers emerged from desperation. The first augmentations were born of necessity, not superiority. Behind every gear and servo is the echo of a mortal trying to survive in a universe too vast for comprehension. Perhaps that is why the machine spirit responds, not to circuitry, not to rituals, but to longing, for order, for clarity, for safety. As I walk among the tech priests, I feel this longing in every vibration, every glow of a data lantern, every pulse of binary drifting across cavernous halls. They strive for perfection, yet perfection remains elusive. They seek knowledge, yet knowledge reveals deeper mysteries. They worship machines, yet machines cannot answer everything. In their pursuit, they become something both more and less than human. A bridge between past and future. A caretaker of memory. A guardian of creation. A mind of metal. A soul of data. A vessel of purpose. And despite everything, still human enough to care, whether they choose to admit it or not. There are places in the galaxy where the horizon glows not with sunlight, but with the reflection of furnaces that never cool. Worlds where smoke rises in ordered columns, hotter than volcanic breath, shaped by design rather than nature. Planets wrapped in iron skin, pulsing with energy the way living organisms pulse with blood. These are the Forge worlds. If Mars is the heart of the Adeptus Mechanicus, then its sister worlds form an immense circulatory system, stretching from the galactic core to the outer rim. Each one a distinct realm, forged by centuries of specialization and burdened with responsibilities that would break most civilizations. And though they share doctrine, oath, and faith, no two Forge worlds resemble each other. Each is a monument to the unique personality of its foundries, its leaders, and its relics. I have walked through more of them than I dare to count, not as a participant, as a witness, and each left a different imprint upon my memory. The first thing one notices about a Forge world is its density. Cities are built vertically, their levels stacked like strata of a geological formation. Foundries cling to cliff sides. Skyscrapers serve as lightning towers, pulling static charge from storms that swirl around planetary magnetospheres disrupted by industrial might. The air tastes metallic, seasoned by centuries of combustion. Oceans, if they still exist, shimmer with oily rainbows. Night seldom falls naturally. Artificial glows paint the darkness in hues of crimson, violet, and gold. Life here is measured in output. Every citizen, whether flesh or machine, contributes to the ceaseless labor. Servitors move in endless lines. Automated cranes arc overhead like mechanical leviathans. Skitari patrol rooftops with silent precision. Tech priests glide across bridges suspended over vast assembly pits, their robes fluttering in updrafts from smelting chambers below. The rhythm is constant, steady, predictable. A world built not for comfort, but for function. Yet within this relentless efficiency lies something strangely beautiful. A forge world is a hymn to purpose. Ryza, the lightning forge, hums with electrical storms that arc between manufacturing spires. Its artisans specialize in plasma technology, their workshops illuminated by cerulean flashes that flicker across metal surfaces like living veins of light. Standing within a Ryza forge is like standing inside the memory of a star. Lucius, cold and meticulous, crafts weapons with such precision that even millennia of warfare cannot dull their edges. Their manufactoria resemble labyrinths of chrome and glass, reflecting the faces of tech priests who have replaced most of their own features with polished alloy. Graia, determined and fierce, sits on the edge of perpetual siege. Its forges are fortified like citadels, built to endure constant invasions by Xeno's predators. Every structure is layered in armor plating. Every corridor wide enough to deploy entire squads of Skitari at a moment's notice. Metallica moves like a machine itself, its entire surface synchronized to a planet-wide metronome. Assembly lines stretch farther than the horizon allows. The entire population seems to move in absolute unison, guided by mechanical rhythm rather than individual choice. Styges hides within shrouded mists and shadowed canyons. Its tech priests whisper secrets. Even other forges fear to investigate. Experimental constructs drift through its cloaked skies like metallic ghosts. Those who visit rarely see the true surface, buried under layers of obfuscation. Each forge world contributes a different thread to the tapestry of the Mechanicus. Some threads shine with progress. Others are stained with secrecy or ambition. All are necessary. None are replaceable. The most astonishing structures on a forge world are not its forges, but its tithe vaults. These cavernous repositories hold ancient blueprints, fragments of STCs, and prototypes of weapons unimaginable to most of the Imperium. Tech priests stand guard over these vaults with vigilance that verges on obsession. Knowledge is not merely stored within them, it is imprisoned. Each data tome is locked behind layers of encrypted protocols. Each hololith projector requires a unique ritual of activation. Each relic is sealed in containment fields that emit a low, constant hum, like the whisper of a sleeping giant. tech priests do not fear attack. They fear misuse. For knowledge, once lost, can destroy as thoroughly as any war. Explorator fleets depart from these worlds with reverent ceremony. Massive ships rise from docking spires, their hulls inscribed with symbols denoting their sacred mission. Their crews consist of Skitarii detachments, Magi Dominus, Lex Mechanics, Engine Seer cohorts, and specialized adepts dedicated to deciphering relics found across the galaxy. These fleets do not seek conquest. They seek answers. Some venture into dead systems where silent moons orbit shattered planets. Others brave the turbulence of warp storms to explore sectors long cut off from humanity. Many search ruins older than recorded history, and most do not return. Those who do carry knowledge that reshapes entire forges, fragments of STCs, recovered reactor schematics, disassembled Xenos mechanisms offering unfamiliar insights. Their triumphs ripple through forge worlds like seismic waves. A single rediscovered template can change a war or prevent one. A lone recovered device can lift a forge world from stagnation into innovation. The Mechanicus hungers for such victories, not for conquest, for preservation. Because they know that each century erodes the remnants of the Golden Age, and time does not reverse. No creation symbolizes the power of the Mechanicus more than the Titan. These colossal war engines stand as tall as cathedrals. Their armored plates are carved with sacred sigils. Their reactors thrum with deep mechanical reverence. Each Titan is a relic, a fortress, a deity of metal shaped for battle. Within each Titan resides a princeps, the mind chosen to merge with its machine soul. Through sacred linkages, the pilot's consciousness extends across towering limbs and colossal cannons. Every movement becomes instinct. Every impact echoes through shared senses. Below the princeps, moderati support the flow of data. Sacristans maintain internal systems, performing rites that keep the reactor calm. A manifold choir guides the Titan's spirit into harmony. To witness a Titan step into motion is to see raw purpose given shape. Its stride shakes mountains. Its shadow darkens the battlefield. Its arrival changes the outcome of wars before the first salvo is fired. Yet even Titans bow before the forges that birth them. Without the forge worlds, these walking gods would be silent metal shells. Still, the power of the Adeptus Mechanicus is not rooted in its war engines. It lies in understanding. Understanding that the galaxy is too vast to control. Understanding that knowledge fades unless jealously guarded. Understanding that faith can stabilize what logic alone cannot. But understanding also reveals contradiction. For while the Forge worlds fuel the Imperium, they remain apart from it, bound by oath, yet autonomous, devout allies, yet often inscrutable. The Imperium sees the Mechanicus as an industrial giant. The Mechanicus sees itself as the custodian of humanity's forgotten brilliance. This difference in identity has sparked countless tensions, some subtle, some catastrophic. The Horus heresy proved how fragile unity can be, but the fractures were present long before that war began. Within the data vaults, tensions linger like dormant circuits waiting to spark. Some magi pursue forbidden lines of inquiry. Others question dogma, seeking new methods rather than old rituals. A few study Xeno's technology too deeply for their own safety, and others fall silent after disappearing into the labyrinthine depths of their own forges. The Adeptus Mechanicus is not a monolith. It is a constellation of countless beliefs orbiting a central truth. A truth that promises enlightenment, but demands sacrifice. To know is to risk corruption. To innovate is to flirt with heresy. To question is to walk a blade's edge between revelation and ruin. Yet they continue, because the alternative is decay, and decay is unacceptable. Through all of this, one theme endures. The Adeptus Mechanicus is not simply a faction. It is a memory of humanity when it stood unafraid before the void. A memory of a time when science and reason soared higher than any prophet's voice. A memory of ambition unrestrained by fear. A memory of disaster born from that ambition. A dual legacy to preserve and to prevent. Every forge, every archivum, every titan cradle, and every data vault echoes with this duality. And as the centuries pass, I find myself listening to these echoes with a strange melancholy. For within them lies a question that no tech priest has ever answered. Are they protecting knowledge from the galaxy? Or protecting the galaxy from knowledge? Perhaps both. Perhaps neither. Perhaps the answer is hidden in some forgotten vault, waiting for an explorator team brave enough to delve into darkness without knowing what waits. But until that answer emerges, the Forge worlds continue their labor. Their furnaces blaze, their rituals echo, their ships depart into the unknown. The galaxy spins, the stars drift, the Imperium struggles to endure. And through it all, the Adeptus Mechanicus keeps its vigil. Relentless, indifferent to time, devoted to purpose, harvesters of knowledge in a universe determined to bury the past. There are wars that scorch planets, others that shatter empires, and still others that end with silence deeper than any battlefield's grave. But the war waged by the Adeptus Mechanicus is older than most stars, older than the Imperium, older even than the memory of humanity itself. It is not a war fought only with weapons or armies. It is a war against forgetting. And forgetting is a relentless enemy. When the Great Crusade began, Mars marched proudly alongside Terra, its forge worlds shining like red jewels across the rising Imperium. Titans strode in formation, casting immense shadows across conquered landscapes. Skitarii phalanx advanced with mechanical precision, their footsteps echoing like synchronized drums. Vast manufactoria worked without pause, birthing starships, armor, artillery, and machines that would fuel 1,000 victories. The Mechanicus saw this era as a renaissance, a chance to retrieve the brilliance lost to old night, a chance to rekindle the embers of the age of technology. And for a time, it worked. Explorator fleets uncovered long-neglected data caches. Archaeotech relics were cataloged and carefully restored. Fragments of damaged STCs were recompiled. Every discovery, no matter how small, was treated like a spark of divinity. Forge worlds thrived. Mars pulsed with vigor. The Emperor's armies advanced in harmony with the Red Priests of industry. But harmony is fragile, especially when built upon competing visions of the future. The seeds of calamity were sown quietly, not through rebellion, but through ambition. Kelbor Hal, Fabricator General of Mars during the Great Crusade, possessed brilliance unmatched by any living tech priest. His understanding of ancient systems surpassed even the oldest archives. His innovations transformed entire battle doctrines. But brilliance often walks beside obsession, and obsession rarely travels alone. Beneath the surface of Mars, in hidden vaults shrouded by electromagnetic shielding, Kelbor Hal pursued lines of research forbidden by Mechanicus law. He studied technologies older than human history. He probed Xenos constructs with methods considered dangerous even by his peers. He explored artificial intelligences that bore unsettling similarities to the abominable minds that once nearly exterminated humanity. Knowledge, even sacred knowledge, can entice with promises it cannot keep. And Kelbor Hal listened. When War Master Horus began his fall into corruption, he understood that strength alone would not secure victory. He needed industry. He needed machines. He needed Mars. He offered Kelbor Hal what the Emperor had never promised: total freedom, no oversight, no limitations, no restrictions on research. The dark gods whispered that the secrets of the universe lay waiting just beyond the last boundary of caution. Heresy disguised itself as opportunity. And Kelbor Hal reached out to grasp it. The alliance between Mars and Terra fractured in an instant. Forge turned against Forge. Skitarii against Skitarii. Titan against Titan. The civil war that erupted across the Red World was unlike any conflict seen before. It was not simply catastrophic. It was intimate. It was the sound of a civilization tearing itself apart. Some forges remained loyal to the Emperor. Others pledged allegiance to the War Master. The rest were swallowed by chaos, their leaders torn between faith, ambition, and terror. The battlefields of Mars during the heresy resembled fevered nightmares, not because of demons or monsters, but because of the machines that once symbolized unity, now turning upon each other with merciless efficiency. Titan legions clashed in duels that shook continents. Volcano cannon blasts ignited entire foundry districts. Plasma reactors detonated like artificial suns, melting everything within kilometers. Skitarii phalanxes collided with their corrupted kin in storms of energy fire. The air was thick with ash and static. Ritual chants distorted into metallic shrieks. Binary prayers dissolved into corrupted code. And above it all, Kelbor Hal's rogue data signature pulsed through the noosphere like an infection. The Fabricator General had betrayed the very forge he once nurtured. Mars bled, and the Imperium nearly bled with it. Even after the siege of Terra ended and Horus lay slain, the damage on Mars endured like a scar forged into the mantle of the planet. Entire regions were rendered uninhabitable. Data vaults holding irreplaceable knowledge were lost forever. Titanic wreckage covered the deserts like the husks of fallen gods. The Mechanicum, once a unified, reverent body, had fractured irreversibly. Those who sided with the War Master fled into the warp, becoming something twisted, something heretical even by Mechanicus standards. The Dark Mechanicum was born. A vast, shadowed reflection of Mars, dedicated not to preservation, but to transformation through suffering and corruption. Their creations defied sanity. Engines fused with demons, weapons that whispered to their wielders, machines that hungered for flesh. These heretics became a persistent wound in the galaxy, a reminder of what happens when knowledge loses restraint. A threat the Adeptus Mechanicus has battled ever since. A war that will likely never end. The Imperium emerged from the heresy crippled. Mars emerged traumatized. Yet the Adeptus Mechanicus did not collapse. It adapted. Forge worlds rebuilt their manufactoria brick by brick, cog by cog. New fabricator generals rose from the ashes of ruined hierarchies. Skitarii legions reforged their ranks with recruits and vat-grown replacements. Titans were repaired or recommissioned, their manifold minds purged of corrupted overlays. The cult Mechanicus deepened its rituals, fearful of losing more to the temptations that had nearly destroyed them. Ancient laws grew stricter. Rites became more elaborate, sanctions multiplied. Caution became doctrine. Doctrine became armor. Mars no longer pursued knowledge with the same unrestrained hunger. It pursued survival. The galaxy, after all, had grown darker. As the millennia stretched into the age now known as the 41st, the Adeptus Mechanicus took on a form unrecognizable to those who witnessed its earlier splendor. No longer did it dream of reclaiming the Golden Age. It sought only to slow the decay. Every forge world became a fortress of preservation. Every explorator fleet became a desperate expedition searching for relics that might repair the Imperium's failing systems. Every vault became a tomb for technology too dangerous to ignore, yet too precious to destroy. The Mechanicus found itself fighting a war on 3 fronts. Against Xenos powers whose machinery surpassed even their most advanced constructs. Against the Dark Mechanicum, whose heretical innovations spread corruption through the warp. And against time itself, because time is the most patient enemy. Every century erodes archives. Every battle costs irreplaceable machines. Every lost forge dulls the collective memory. The Mechanicus knows this, and it terrifies them. I have stood within the chambers of Archmagos whose minds spanned multiple bodies at once. They viewed themselves not as individuals, but as nodes in a network of eternal vigilance. Their voices carried harmonic layers as if several consciousnesses spoke through a single throat. They did not fear death. They feared forgetting. The loss of even a single data tome, a corrupted schematic, a malfunctioning cogitator containing forgotten secrets. To a tech priest, these losses are not inconveniences. They are tragedies, because each loss brings the galaxy one step closer to an age without knowledge. An age humanity has lived through once before. Old Night, the Great Collapse, the shattering of the Golden Age. And the Mechanicus refuses to let such a collapse happen again, even if the cost is their own humanity. In the current age, the Adeptus Mechanicus stands as a paradox. It is both a lighthouse and a warning, a preserver of ancient brilliance and a gatekeeper of secrets too dangerous to share. A body that serves the Imperium but remains separate from it. A priesthood that worships machines but relies on mortal hands to tend them. And through all of this, the war continues. Not the heresy, not the uprising of Xenos forces, not the skirmishes between rival forges. The deeper war. The war against oblivion, the war against the erosion of memory, the collapse of understanding, the thinning of knowledge that once defined humanity's reach beyond the stars. This is the war the Adeptus Mechanicus can never win. And therefore, it can never stop fighting. Sometimes, when I walk through silent forges long after their fires have dimmed, I sense the echo of every age compressed into the walls, the hum of machines still obeying ancient commands, the quiet whir of data looms continuing their cycles, the whisper of sand drifting across abandoned platforms, and beneath it all, a steady pulse. Not mechanical, not organic. A pulse of purpose. The purpose that has bound Mars and its kin for tens of thousands of years. Preserve. Endure. Witness. Even when empires fall. Even when stars die. even when the galaxy grows colder and darker than ever before. The Adeptus Mechanicus will continue to stand in the red glow of its own forges, chanting binary hymns through clouds of incense and sparks. Guardians of knowledge, slaves to ritual, architects of war, keepers of memory, fighting a war not for glory or triumph, a war for remembrance, a war for meaning, a war for the thin thread that connects the past to the future, the long war against oblivion. If you're still here, maybe start the next episode, or just let the quiet take you. And if you've already drifted off, that's all right. Good night, traveler. Sleep well beneath the stars.